So in this lesson I'm going to just show how to use a TI-83 Plus graphing calculator to do what I've done in other cases with a TI-73. So this is for those of you at home that are working with a TI-83 and trying to duplicate things we've done in class with a TI-73. So you can see that TI-83 Plus, if I put it side by side with the TI-73, they're pretty identical, and there are some key differences, especially in these rows here. These are fraction decimal keys that a TI-73 is intended for middle school level kinds of mathematics. The sine, cosine, tangent are for more advanced algebra kinds of things that you will use in high school. The button that we're most concerned with in middle school that we'll use a lot is the stat key, and you can see here it says stat. On the TI-73 it says list, and really if you look at the above, this one says stat above here and this one says list above. So what you really have is a key that's been reversed on the two. So a lot of times the operations that we do on a 73, we just do them the opposite way with the 83. But I'm going to go ahead and show how to use a TI-83 Plus to do what I've done in class or do in class with using this same key. And again, a lot of the operations are going to be the same. Some of the menus are going to be slightly different than what I show with the TI-73. So just go ahead and skip to just use the TI-83 Plus. What we're going to do is we're going to use this list, and in investigation 1.3 there's a question about box and whisker plots and 5-number summaries. And what we're going to look at is we're going to take the natural peanut butters and the regular peanut butters, so this set in the upper half and this set in the lower half, divide it into two parts. We have the regular and the natural peanut butters, and we're going to look at this column, which is the price per serving. So this is how much they cost. So this column right here is the column we want. And what we're going to do with that in a TI-83 is we're going to take those numbers in this column and we're going to put them into lists. And so on a TI-83, to put things into a list, the list button is the upper button, but we actually don't need that at this point. What we need to do is just push the stat button, this one right here on the calculator. It says stat. So push that button. What we're given here is a menu choice, and the first thing on there is called edit, and that's what we actually want to do. We want to edit a list. We want to actually change a list. So when I push the enter button down here in the bottom right hand corner of the calculator is the enter button right here. So I push enter and I get these lists or places to put in numbers. So I'm going to go back and do that over again, just again so you're clear. So if I push the stat button right here, I get this menu, and the first thing on there, which is edit, I'm going to hit enter, and that gives me the option to put numbers into a list. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these numbers out of this column and put them into my calculator in this space. So I'm going to go ahead and enter those numbers. 27 is the first number, and you can see when I put a number in and then you hit enter, and then 32, it shows up in the screen down here until you hit enter. When I hit enter, then it shows up in the list, and then 26, and push enter, and then another 26, which again it shows up here but not in the list until I hit enter, and then another 26, 3 26s in a row. So this list now here is matching this list here, and then a 21, enter, 32, enter, 27, enter, and we'll move a little quicker here, 26, enter. So I'm just taking these numbers, 32 off the list, enter, 21. Each time I enter them into the list, 24, enter, another 26, and then a 34. And you can see that 34 is the 14th entry that I'm going to enter into this list. And if you look, there are 14 natural peanut butters. And these are their prices. So when I hit enter now, it goes down to the blank space below, and that's the 15th entry, which there's nothing there. So I can just go up there and you can see that 34, you can actually go back up the list and look at each number. If you made a mistake, you can actually clear or delete those entries and fix them. And then I'm back to the top of the list. If I go to the very top, L1 lights up, and I really want to stay out of there. That just shows actually the whole list. If you look at the bottom here, everything that's in that list. So I'm going to go back down. These arrow keys help me to move around. Then I'm going to go to the right, and that now puts me into the top of list 2. And I'm going to take the numbers down here, and I'm going to put them in to the calculator 2. So going right down the list and using my calculator. So I'm just going to put these numbers in, 22, and enter, 19, enter, 14, enter, 20, enter, 21, 22, 12, 17, 9. So again, I'm just taking these numbers, 16, right off of the list and putting them in my calculator. 21, 17, 14, 11, 22, 21, 16, 17, 9, and 16. And I can see that's the 23rd entry, and I know there's actually 23 of these regular peanut butters, so that's going to be the last entry when I hit enter. And it may look like there's no numbers in this left column, but they're there because there's more in this one. There's 23 in this column. There's only 14 in here. If I go up, arrow up, I'll see that there they are. They're still there. They're in list 1. And so there, if I go all the way to the top where it says L2, those are all the numbers that are in that list. And I can go back through and check and make sure that I got all of those numbers in there if I'm not sure. And so now what I have in my graphing calculator are all the numbers from those 2 sets in the list. Now, the next thing I'm going to do with them is I'm actually going to turn them into what's called a box and whisker plot. And so you can see on your graphing calculator, there's this button that says Y equals. Just above that key, right above the key, is a one that says stat plot. And so that's the actual key that we're going to use. Because it's a yellow lettering, it's actually used the yellow key to access it. So I want to push the yellow key and then the one that says Y equals. And I'm going to get this list. Now, if you had just pushed the Y equals button, you would get this list. And it says plot 1, 2, and 3 at the top. And those should all be showing nothing right now. If I actually go up arrow to one of them and hit enter, it will actually turn that one on. But I'm going to actually go up there and turn it back off again. So everything in this screen should just be clear. So if I go again back to the yellow button and then the one just above it, what are called stat plots. And what I want to do now is enter into stat plot, plot 1, just by hitting the enter button. And now that takes me into that, and it shows now that plot 1, that is black, so that means it's ready to be turned on. It's flashing on the on, so when I hit enter, now it actually turns it on, and the off is no longer lit up. And I'm going to go down to the type, and the type I want is a box and whisker plot with the dots in this one right here. So I'm going to go over to that one and turn that one on. And then the next thing is X list. That's just asking which list you want to use in this box and whisker plot. And we want to use list 1. So that's all set to go. And then the rest of that, I don't need to change any of these things. That should say list 1. This should be in the one that's for box and whisker, and it should be turned on. And then I can actually go back and push the yellow button and the one just above it again, and go down. Now you can see plot 1 is on, and it shows the type of graph and then the list that it's going to use, list 1. Now I'm going to go actually down to plot 2, so use the down arrow to plot 2, enter, and the same thing. Now it shows plot 2 up here, and it's flashing, and I want to hit enter so that it stays on the on and the off is no longer dark. Go down 1 so that now the type of graph is flashing, and go over to the box and whisker plot with the dots on the end. We'll talk about what those dots mean in another lesson. And hit enter. And now here's the part we have to change the list that it's doing, it's choosing. So here it says list 1. I actually want plot 2 to be list 2. So now here's again a little variation from what happens with the TI-73. To choose the list, I have to push the yellow button and the stat button, because this thing above the stat is list. So yellow and then the stat button allows me to choose from the lists. So that was the yellow button and the stat button. Now I go down to list 2, and that's the list I want to do, and I hit enter, and now you see it changed that right there to list 2, L2. And so now that's set. And now I can actually graph this. I can actually push the button that says graph. And generally the first time you do this, when you push graph, it looks like there's a little bit of the graph there. That's because the window is not set for a statistics plot, which is what this is. So I have to use this button that says zoom. So I'm going to push the zoom button right there. And this is a plot. And so you actually have to go down this menu. So all these different zooms, zoom in, zoom out, zoom standard, zoom integer, zoom stat, number 9. This is a statistics plot, so we're going to zoom stat. I'm going to hit enter. There they are, the box and whisker plots. So I put in the lists, I turn on the plots, I made them box and whisker plots, and now I'm actually going to get some information out of it. I'm going to use the trace button. This is really the same as on a TI-73. The trace button, first time I hit it, it's going to go somewhere on the first or the upper graph. And that first listing on that graph, you can see that that's from list 1. This is plot 1, list 1, which was our natural peanut butter prices. So this box and whisker plot on the top is for the natural peanut butters. And the flashing spot, it says down here at the bottom, is the minimum X is 21. So that actually represents the 0.21. That's the minimum value, or the minimum, and you can see that on your list, the minimum is 21. There's a couple of them. And so that's your minimum. And we're talking about a 5-number summary. That's the first number, the minimum 5 of the 5-number summary. So our minimum is 21. If I use the right arrow key, it'll move over to what's called quartile 1, or the first quartile, and that's 26. That's the next number in our 5-number summary. So now I have a 21 is the minimum, 26 is the first quartile, and if I push the right arrow again, it looks like it doesn't move at all, and that's because the median is also 26. If you notice, there were a whole bunch of 26s. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 26s in this set. So there's a lot of data right at 26, and they kind of pile up on top of each other here. And so the median is also 26. It's the middle number in the set. If we were to line up all the numbers in order, you'd see that the middle number is 26. And if I right arrow over again, the next number, quartile 3, or the upper quartile, is 32. And then the maximum, the last number, is 34. And that represents what's called a 5-number summary of that data. The box and whisker plot displays it, the minimum, the lower quartile, median, upper quartile, maximum, and then we see actually 50% of the data that's in this box place. 25%, 50%, another 25%. So the middle part, really, if you think about the box and whisker plot, is represented from 26 to 32. You really think of it like this is my box, and these are the whiskers here to those numbers. So that's a 5-number summary for the natural peanut butters. The regular peanut butters, if I want to see what those numbers are, I'm just going to push the down arrow and it jumps to whatever's nearest, and this happens to be the maximum for the regular peanut butters, which is at 23. So again, I can pick those 5 numbers off of there. There's the maximum. You can see it's plot 2, list 2. So plot 2, list 2, that's the regular peanut butter prices. That's the maximum at 23. The upper quartile at 21. These are my 5 numbers from a 5-number summary. The median, or the middle number, is 17. And again, this is if we took these numbers and put them in order from least to greatest. That would be the middle number in the set. 14, the lower quartile. And 9 is the minimum. So those are all listed right here on the calculator from the box and whisker plot. So that's one way, kind of a way using the graphing calculator and a TI-83 Plus to make box and whisker plots and to find a 5-number summary. We can always go back to those lists if we want to see what they look like by pressing the Stat button and hitting Enter. We can see those lists again. We can add other lists or do the same thing. We can change the lists. We can go back to Graph and see the graph. We can go back to Trace and move around within the data sets. And so that's kind of a brief lesson. Again, if I wanted to pick those 5 numbers off of there, there's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points, different points on a box and whisker plot that show the data and give you an idea of how box and whisker plots work and how to use a graphing calculator to make one.